Okay, we'll just let that roll into place for a moment. Yeah, good enough. I don't know. That's what we want. We go there. How do I Here we go. That's what I want. And then go here. And then back here. Where are we? Let's just get rid of that. Yeah, that should be fine. Discard. Yep. Gonna try and still up. Is there anything I need to do over here? Might quickly get myself a drink. Let's see, can we? There we go. Da 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 da. Let's undo this to go over there. Yep. Okay. I guess we can just go for it now then. Just gonna. Okay. All right. So, as we like to do here, we like to kind of do little cooker watching every now and then. I'm going to be trying to do this more often now. Um, I don't know about like every day, but I'm going to try and do it basically as much as I can. hopefully that ends up being more frequent than what I was attempting to try and do as much as I can before. But I've got a bit more of an idea of how I'm going to run these, so that'll help sort of make it feel worth pursuing. So this is just my following. As you can tell with MFA March for Australia, and just all of like, I mean, these are other people, but all of the um, all of the MFA far right individuals talking about how great today is, not just because it's New Year's, but also because it's Federation Day for Australia. And so I kind of thought it would be maybe interesting to remind ourselves about Federation Day and just like maybe like Australian history and how the country that we know now as Australia came to actually be. Because of all of the countries for a far right movement to try and pull the whole gimmick of, a country that we once were, that was how this country originally started, this is how we've always been, this is what we should be. Probably couldn't be done worse than in Australia. Like they have their arguments in the sense of like Australia, the colonies, and then when the colonies came together on Federation Day, um, that it was all for the white man and whatnot, or white Australian, or Anglo-Saxon, Anglo-Celtic, whatever the fuck they each individual one of them wants to frame it around. But it's what I more so mean is Australia, how it came to be Australia, is so not clean cut. It's so not clean cut. At least that's how I remember it. And I learnt a lot of Australian history when I was younger. And I mean, like in high school and whatnot, because I just took a fascination. I just loved history. I still love history. Reading up about it and whatnot. So we're just obviously going to start with Wikipedia because it's like the easiest place to start with. And I mean, it's fucking talking about the Federation Day of Australia or Federation of Australia. Like, we're not dealing with stuff that is super niche. Federation of Australia was the process by which the six separate British self-governing Australian colonies, New South Wales, Queensland, South Australia, which also governed what is now the Northern Territory. I didn't. Um. Oh yeah, that's right. I thought so did Queensland. Anyway, Tasmania, Victoria, and Western Australia united to form the Commonwealth of Australia, establishing a system of federalism in Australia. Getting a lot of Australia in here. The colonies of Fiji and New Zealand. Uh, Fiji and New Zealand were originally part of this process, but they decided not to join the federation. Which is kind of interesting, actually, in regards to New Zealand. Doesn't surprise me. Following Federation, the six colonies that united to form the Commonwealth of Australia as states kept the systems of government and the bicameral legislatures that they had developed as separate colonies, but they also agreed to have a federal government that has responsibilities for matters concerning the whole nation. When the Constitution of Australia came into force on the 1st of January 1901, the colonies collectively became states of the Commonwealth. The efforts to bring about federation in the mid-19th century were were dogged by the lack of popular support for the movement, which is something very important to remember. That the reason why it did, like, maybe now in 2026, gotta remember that. In 2026, it might be hard to make the case, but like if we were to start from say 2000, you would have a bigger case to make that Australia, known by the British, had spent more time not as a federated country than as a federated country. Like, think of it like that. Think of that, for example. And then on top of that, during the 1800s, 19th century, the second half of it, yeah, there was very little support for the idea of the country becoming federated. I mean, obviously, this is like that kind of stuff was an issue in America as well. Not at this time, though. A number of conventions were held during the 1890s to develop a constitution for the Commonwealth. I remember, yep. Sir Henry Parkes, Premier of the colony of New South Wales, was instrumental in this process. Sir Edmund Bunn, Barton, second only to Parkes in the length of his commitment to the Federation cause, was the caretaker Prime Minister of Australia at the inaugural national election in March 1901. The election returned Barton as Prime Minister, though without a majority, which is kind of funny from the get-go. We've had weird fucking parliamentary bullshit from the get-go. Sorry, I will admit, I am a bit tired, a bit run down, a bit exhausted, even though it is the time that it is. So I'm not going to be in that high energy. Maybe I'll build up into it. I don't know, we'll see. Uh, this period has lent its name to an architectural style prevalent in Australia at that time, known as Federation architecture. Oh, I don't think I've heard about that one. As early as 1842, an anonymous article in the Southern Australian magazine called for a union of the Australasian colonies into a governor generalship. I would be also really actually interested to know if, because there was the whole thing of the colonies of Fiji and New Zealand were originally part of this process, but they decided not to join the Federation. And then we've got like there being lack of popular support for the movement. Makes me wonder like what was the support, the general support levels in Fiji and New Zealand? Obviously, probably a lot less. But also, how much did them potentially being included relate to there being a low popularity of the idea in the mainland colonies? In September 1846, the New South Wales Colonial Secretary Sir Edward Deas Thompson suggested federation in the New South Wales Legislative Council. The Governor of New South Wales then wrote to the United Kingdom's Colonial Office suggesting a functionary superior functionary with power to review the legislation of all of the colonies. In 1853, Fitzroy was appointed as Sir Charles Fitzroy as governor of Van Diemen's Land, which was isn't that what was Tasmania? Yeah, I thought so. South Australia and Victoria, a pre-Federation Governor General of Australia. With wide-ranging powers to intervene in intercolonial disputes, this title was also extended to his immediate successor, William Denison. Okay. Drew up a plan for General Assembly of the Colonies. The idea was quietly dropped. However, it prompted the statesman William Wentworth to propose in the following year the establishment of a Congress from the various colonial legislatures. The Congress, eh? To legislate on intercolonial questions. 1853, a select committee formed by Wentworth to draft a new constitution for New South Wales proposed a General Assembly of the Australian colonies. This assembly was proposed to legislate on intercolonial matters, including tariffs, railways, lighthouse. Pennies. Man, it really makes you remember this was the 1800s. Gold and the mail, exactly. Nothing about NBN. This was the first outline of the future Australian Commonwealth to be presented in an official colonial legislature report. 1857, Deas Thompson moved for a New South Wales Parliamentary Select Committee on the question of Australian Federation. The committee reported in favour of a Federal Assembly being established, but the government changed in the meantime and the question was shelved. Oof. Same year, in England, Wentworth founded the General Association for the Australian Colonies, whose objective was to obtain a federal assembly for the whole of Australia. While in London, Wentworth produced a draft bill proposing, like keep in mind, we're at 1857, we still have to get to 1901. produced a draft bill proposing a confederation of the Australian colonies, with each colony given equal representation in an intercolonial assembly, a proposal subsequently endorsed by his association. He further proposed a Permissive Act be passed by Parliament, allowing, I imagine, British Parliament, allowing the colonies of Australia and any subsect of them which was not a penal settlement to federate at will. Wentworth hoping to garner as proud support. Oh, jeez, man, I'm not reading very well today. What a great decision. Hoping to garner as broad support as possible, proposed a loose association of the colonies, which was criticised by Robert Lowe. The Secretary of State subsequently opted not to introduce the bill, stating it would probably lead to dissension, 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 like dissent, I imagine, and discontent, distributing it nonetheless to the colonies for their responses. While there was in principle support for a union of the colonies, the matter was ultimately deferred, while New South Wales Premier Charles Cowper and Henry Parkes, oh yeah, old mate, who will soon be very important, preferred to focus on liberalising Wentworth's squatter-friendly constitution. What does squatter-friendly mean? Federal Council of Australasia. A serious movement for the federation of the colonies arose in the late 1880s, a time when there was increasing nationalism amongst Australians. Again, this is something important to remember. Nationalism in this context does not necessarily mean the nationalism um, that we're used to. Because while yes, it is obviously like nationalism in the sense of having a love of your country, the country that you're born in, citizen of or whatever. Um, but it's more so like at this point, this would be a theoretically revolutionary idea because at the time, it's like these people are being seen not as Australians really, but are actually being seen as British subjects that just so happen to be on a continent that they're calling Australia with many colonies, which is why it's Western Australia, the colony of Western Australia. They probably would have come up with a better name otherwise. um, but yeah, so like this was a more revolutionary idea at the time because it's more so like, nah, I don't really associate with any like potentially British um, connections or relations. It's Australian that I connect with. And the thing is, though, this would be for anyone who was here in Australia, native born. While obviously there was probably a majority white or Anglo, whatever, like it wasn't so much about, it was more about, it's not, doesn't matter where you come from, it's that you're here and that we care about here. We don't do, we aren't doing what we're doing here for the sake of Britain. We're doing it for the sake of our own country, of our own people, of ourselves, whatever. Depends, obviously, each individual different. Great majority, so yeah, a great majority of whom were native born, especially by this point. The idea of being Australian began to be celebrated in songs and poems. This was fostered by improvements in transport and communications, such as the establishment of a telegraph system between the colonies in 1872. The Australian colonies were also influenced by other federations that had emerged around the world, particularly the United States and Canada. Sir Henry Parkes, then Colonial Secretary of New South Wales, first proposed a federal council body in 1867, after it was rejected by the British Secretary of State for the Colonies, the Duke of Buckingham. I mean, so this is sort of what I mean when I talk about like the difference of the nationalism back then versus the nationalism now. Like really, if we wanted to be more, I don't know, grammatically accurate or technically accurate or whatever, we'd be calling these people neo-nationalists. But we don't bother with that, I guess. I guess that's why we just say neo-Nazis. Uh, Parkes brought up the issue again in 1880. The guy was fucking persistent. this time as the Premier of New South Wales. At the conference, representatives from Victoria, New South Wales, and South Australia considered a number of issues, including federation, communication, Chinese immigration, of course, vine diseases. I'm actually curious. What is this? Vine diseases caused by fungi, a major threat to great. Oh, so like it killing off um, crops or whatnot, I'm guessing. I thought it was more so meaning like to people. That makes a bit more sense, but it's just very funnily written. And uniform tariff rates. The Federation had the potential to ensure that throughout the continent, trade and interstate commerce would be unaffected by protectionism, and measurement and transport would be standardized. Which obviously, and like this is the thing, this is why things like the federating Australia, or at least federating the multiple states that like state is in like a state, like not just a state of a country, but like an actual state with a government and a society and all that. Um, to have multiple on one single land. I mean, normally we would just have multiple countries, but they decided, nah, we we've cornered all the indigenous and pretty well won that battle. So let's just take the whole fucking thing. Um, and we beat all the other Europeans to it. So like, uh, in that sense, it is not only like a revolutionary idea, but honestly just like economically and so and so advantageous. It's a big leg up to then just standardize everything across the board. Keeps it all simple. The final and successful push for a federal council came at an intercolonial convention in Sydney in November and December 1883. The trigger was the British rejection of Queensland's unilateral annexation of New Guinea. Oh, I I knew that like obviously Queensland for a period owned New Guinea. I didn't know it was like a thing where even the British were like, nah, that was a pretty bad idea actually. Um, I know this is AI, but I just want to be quick. The British government rejected Queensland's 1883 unilateral annexation of New Guinea, Papua New Guinea, because it was an unauthorized, cheeky act by a colonial government that threatened international relations, especially with Germany, and potentially risked a major conflict over colonial possessions in the Pacific. London feared a dispute could escalate, while also disliking the prospect of increased responsibility. Yes, and the association with Queensland's controversial blackbirding practices, ultimately forcing a formal British annexation later under specific conditions to manage German expansion. Hmm, that is so interesting. It's basically like, no, you dumb fucks. I know you want more land and to own it and to just rule over people, but you're making this difficult for us. We've got our own grand schemes. And so then eventually the British saw it worthy because it's like, well, maybe then the rest of Australia can pull Queensland's shit back into line. And the British government wished to see a federalised Australasia. Well, that didn't work out well. The Australasia part, at least. The convention was called to debate the strategies needed to counter the activities of the German and the French in New Guinea and I don't know where that is. Sorry, this is kind of the reason why I'm doing this is because I want to be able to like when I do my Wikipedia um, research, I like to just wormhole myself down. Okay, so I'm just yep, cool. Everything's all good still. I hope I haven't been unaware of like me covering anything that I've been reading in the meantime. Just want to quickly go here. Let's just see, is anything? Nope, doesn't look like anything's new. I'll just do a refresh. Sometimes you got to refresh to see. Happy fellow left. Stay woke in 26. My phone memes I say, but never. Okay. Oh yeah. So what's this? Where's this? Named after the Hebrides, whatever, in Scotland by Captain James Cook in 1774. Ah, Vanuatu. Okay, Vanuatu. Yeah. Sir Samuel Griffith, I always like the name Griffith, the Premier of Queensland, drafted a bill to constitute the Federal Council. The conference successfully petitioned the Imperial Parliament. That's what it was called at the time. It was called the Imperial Parliament. Successfully petitioned it to enact the Federal Council of Australasia Act 1885. That is so funny. So like, I mean, that's the thing. That's how these things have to come about. Like, it's not just as simple as, oh, some guys here decided that we should all be federated. Like, they had to get permission from the British. Like, say what you will. Like, this is what I always end up saying. Say what you will about American Nazis. At least they had a war. At least they did fight for like at least they had a American Revolution where they did then try and actually like steer the country in their own like direction, regardless of the good and bad. But like it's now going to be American. Well, these guys didn't really do that. They just got permission to do it. Requested permission. As a result, a Federal Council of Australasia was formed to represent the affairs of the colonies in their relations with the South Pacific Islands. And of course, so yeah, of Australasia, so it's all about the Pacific Islands. All about just like the colonies in the South Pacific, I should say. New South Wales and New Zealand did not join. Hang on. What? Wait. I like how New South Wales didn't join, yet they were like the one country that had been like really pushing for it. Country, state, whatever, colony. And New Zealand did not join. The self-governing colonies of Queensland, Tasmania, and Victoria, as well as the Crown colonies of Western Australia and Fiji. That's interesting. The Crown colonies, what does that mean? So it was a government, and then and later British Empire. Interesting. There was usually a governor to represent the Crown appointed by the British monarch on the advice of the UK government, with or without the assistance of a local council. In some cases, this council was split into two. So yeah, basically, like it was more directly um, governed by the British, and so Fiji as well became involved. South Australia was brief. So like that's the thing. We were gonna have Fiji. We could have gotten Fiji, man. South Australia was briefly a member between 1888 and 1890. The federal and so what? Then they just left. Yeah, we don't really want to be Australians anymore. We're South Australians though. The Federal Council had powers to legislate directly upon certain matters and did so to effect the mutual recognition of naturalizations by colonies, to regulate labour standards and the employment of Pacific Island labour in fisheries, of course, and to enact a legal suit to be served outside the colony in which it was issued. I don't understand what that means. Each legal jurisdiction has rules to enable a legal suit to be served outside the colony in which it was issued. Oh, okay. In other words, if you're getting, I think it means like if you're getting, if you did a crime in one colony, you can be penalized in another, basically. Yeah, served outside. So they get served for it. A power valuable in matters ranging from absconding, oh, well, there you go, debtors to divorce proceedings. True. But the council did not have a permanent secretariat, executive powers, or any revenue of its own. So it was basically just like a meeting committee that just like came, like like a library. They met every like month or 2 weeks. Um, Furthermore, the absence of the powerful colony of New South Wales weakened its representative value. Yeah, because at the time New South Wales was the superior. Oh dear, I'm worried about what we're going to get. Nevertheless, it was the first major form of intercolonial cooperation. It provided an opportunity for federalists from around the country to meet and exchange ideas. The means by which the council was established endorsed the continuing role that the Imperial Parliament would have in the development of Australia's constitutional structure. In terms of the Federal Council of Australia Act, the Australian drafters established a number of powers dealing with their common interests, which would later be replicated in the Australian Constitution. Depicts the anti-Chinese racism in Australia, which was one of the driving pushes behind the forces behind the Federation. Yeah, so obviously the Chinese pest, Jesus Christ. Obviously, when they were doing Federation and whatnot, so these are supposed to be the different like states. Yep, New South Wales, yep, Queensland. There was a lot of racism in order to do it, because the only way that they could get all the whites to want to like group up in one, so that they could, in order for them to manufacture consent to get to increase their power. Let's be real, was by convincing them that it was the only means of preventing Chinese people from coming here, which was stupid. Like in this sense, there is a truth to when the Nazis, the fascists, the white supremacists, there is a truth to when they say that Australia was actually built or started or whatever as a white ethno state or whatever, Anglo-Australian, whatever. There is truth to this. I just don't care. Like they say that as if, well, therefore that invalidates everything you're going to say in retort to that. And it's like, I can be acknowledging of that and also then say, yeah, it's just a shit idea. Shitty ideas. Doesn't matter. I'm here. I think it's a shitty idea. There's other people here who think it's a shitty idea. We're changing that. That's what we did before. That's what we're continuing to do. That's what it is. But they need to try and make it like it's a natural thing. Like therefore it's what's natural. Um, Early opposition. The individual colonies, Victoria accepted, were somewhat wary of federation. Politicians, particularly those from the smaller colonies, disliked the very idea of delegating power to a national government. They feared that any such government would inevitably be dominated by the more populous New South Wales and Victoria. Queensland, for its part, worried that the advent of race-based national legislation would restrict the importing of Kanaka labourers, thereby jeopardising its sugarcane industry. Basically, Queensland was the racist state at the time. Like they all were, but like Queensland was like the most insane. These were not the only concerns of those resistant to federation. Smaller colonies also worried that the abolition of tariffs, which would deprive them of a large production of their proportion of their revenue, and leave their commerce at the mercy of the larger states. New South Wales, traditionally free trade in its outlook, hmm, that makes sense, wanted to be wanted to be satisfied that the Federation's tariff policy would not be protectionist. Victorian Premier James Service described fiscal union as the line in the way of federation. Fiscal union, fiscal union. Yeah. A further fundamental issue was how to distribute the excess customs duties from the central government to the states. For the larger colonies, there was the possibility, which never became an actuality, that they could be required to subsidise the struggling economies of Tasmania, South Australia, and Western Australia. Which we never want to do, you know. No one ever wants to be fucking subsidising other people. Because we don't want to just all be doing better. It's mine. It's ours. Let me keep it. It's always our fucking attitude. And I don't mean ours as in like Australians specifically. Even without the concerns, there was debate about the form of government that a federation would take. Experience of other federations was less than inspiring. In particular, the United States had experienced its traumatic Civil War. Would we consider this? Well, yeah, I guess the Civil War was kind of a matter of federation or not. The nascent Australian labour movement was less than wholly committed in its support for federation. Was less than wholly committed. On the one hand, nationalist sentiment was strong within the labour movement. Yeah, that makes sense. And there was much support for the idea of white Australia. Yeah, of course. And that's, yeah. On the other hand, Labour representatives feared that federation would distract attention from the need for social and industrial reform and further entrench the power of the conservative forces. So this is sort of what I'm saying, is like, depending on, it's hard to say, I wasn't around at the time, but like, while retrospectively there is advantages, like looking back on federations, like there's obvious advantages to being federated, considering the the values and views and ideas that were prevalent at the time in these colonies, though. Um, for the labor movement, it would be the tough decision of like, they may not see it as necessarily racist, but like, do we give in to our racist desires in exchange for very likely the possibility for actual social and industrial reform? Which, what do you know? That's what happened. The federal conventions included no representatives of organized labor. There you go. Oh, in fact, the proposed federal constitution was criticized by labor representatives as being too conservative. These representatives wanted to see a federal government with more power to legislate on issues such as wages and prices. Yeah, the representatives, the labor representatives. They also regarded the proposed Senate as much too powerful. It's interesting because that's, yeah, with the capacity to block attempts at social and political reform, much as the colonial upper houses were quite openly doing at that time. So, yeah. Religious factors played a small but not trivial part in disputes over federation, over whether federation was desirable or even possible. As a general rule, pro-federation leaders were Protestants. Hmm. While Catholics' enthusiasm for federation was much weaker, not least because Parkes had been militantly anti-Catholic for decades, of course, and because the Labour movement was disproportionately Catholic in its membership, yeah, because of all the Irish. For all that many Irish, there you go. For all that, many Irish could feel an attractive affinity between the cause of Home Rule in Ireland, effectively federalising the United Kingdom, and the federation of the Australian colonies. Federationists such as Edmund Barton, with the full support of his right-hand man Richard O'Connor, were careful to maintain good relations with Irish opinion. But we were the original stock, the founding stock of the country was Celtic, Anglo-Celtics. It just makes you remember that, fuck man, this shit's so dumb. Like the shit that these people say is so dumb. Early constitutional conventions. In the early 80s, so we're now at the early 1890s. Two meetings established the need for federation and set the framework for this to occur. An informal meeting attended by official representatives by the Australasian colonies was held in 1890. This led to the first National Australasian Convention meeting in Sydney in 1891. New Zealand was represented at both the conference and the convention, although its delegates indicated that it would be unlikely to join the federation at its foundation. Which one? New Zealand. But it would probably be interested in doing so at a later date. Well, never mind about that. The Australasian Federal Conference of 1890 met at the instigation of Parkes. Accounts of its origin commonly commence with Lord Carrington, the Governor of New South Wales, goading the aging Parkes at a luncheon on wait, but a luncheon at a luncheon? Luncheon? What a yeah. On 15, does it mean like function? Luncheon? I don't know. On 1889. So we think he's still going back. Parkes reportedly boasted that he could confederate these colonies in 12 months. Well, he was wrong. More like tried almost 12 years. Carrington recorded, then why don't you do it? It would be a glorious finish to your life. Parkes the next day wrote to the Premier of Victoria, Duncan Gillies, offering to advance the cause of federation. Gillies' response was predictably cool, given the reluctance of Parkes to bring New South Wales into the Federal Council. Interesting. In October, Parkes travelled north to Brisbane and met with Griffith and Sir Thomas, yeah, McIlrath, something like that. On the return journey, he stopped just south of the colonial border and delivered the historic Tenterfield oration on 1889, stating that the time had come for the colonies to consider Australian federation. Through the latter part of 1889, the premiers and governors corresponded and agreed for an informal meeting to be called. The membership was New South Wales, Parkes as the premier. Wait, hang on. So Parkes was the one who wanted there to be a federal council, but he was reluctant to bring New South Wales, which he was premier of, into it. That's so weird. And William McMillan, colonial treasurer. Victoria was Duncan Gillies, all right, premier, and Alfred Dinkin, chief secretary. Queensland had Sir Samuel Griffith, leader of the opposition. What? And John Murtagh Macpherson, colonial secretary. Wait, I need to see this. I don't get it. Why is he leader of the opposition? But now in the state. Ah, yeah, because that's right. For a while, Queensland was a part of New South Wales. Um, it's called- Um, he had a reputation as a radical and was initially seen as an ally of the Labour movement. This changed after his government's intervention in the 1891 shearers' strike. Oh, took a keen interest in external affairs, giving financial and administrative support to the newly annexed. Oh, well, maybe that's him being nice. Um, I just want to know why does it say he's the opposition leader? Delegation to the interest in external affairs. And, from close to the Supreme Court, who was frequently asked to assist in drafting legislation in the Queensland Criminal Code, the first in Australia, was mostly his creation. A Federalist, wrote the first constitution that was presented. Hmm. Okay. That's who he is. I just want to see the political career. Let's see, what was his party? Maybe that'll just simply put it. But then again, were they doing parties back then? Party. Ah, okay, he was an independent. So then, whatever. South Australia, Dr. John Cockburn, what a name, and Thomas Playford, leader of the opposition. Tasmania involved Andrew Inglis Clark, Attorney General, and Stafford Bird, the Treasurer. Western Australia was Sir James George Lee Steer. Uh, and then, New Zealand, Captain William Russell. Wait, so he was just the Speaker. Um, Colonial Secretary, and Sir John Hall. Who's he? Oh, okay. When the conference met at the Victorian Parliament in Melbourne on 6 February, the delegates were confronted with a scorching summer maximum temperature of 39.7 degrees in the shade. That's good to know. Debated whether or not the time was right to proceed with federation. Was that with some of the delegates? Well, some of the delegates agreed it was. The small states were not as enthusiastic. Thomas Playford from South Australia indicated the tariff question. Fuck. Here's the tiredness. The tariff question and the lack of popular support as hurdles. Similarly, Sir James Lee Steer from Western Australia and the New Zealand delegates suggested there was little support for federation in their respective colonies. So more on the way, this is 1890. There is still very little support. There is still not enough support for federation, they believe. Like in Western Australia isn't, obviously New Zealand doesn't really matter anymore. But like South Australia is clearly indicating that they're not too sure. Basic question at this early assembly was how to combine federalism and responsible government. It's the question we're always fucking asking, eh? Park suggested the Canadian model, which federated with the British North America Act, 1867, to be similarly adopted in Australia. However, delegates from the smaller states were not enthusiastic, with John Alexander Cockburn of South Australia seeing the Canadian model as a coercive and homogenous national union. Interesting. Andrew Inglis Clark, a long-term admirer of American federal institutions, introduced the US Constitution as an example of the protection of states' rights. He presented it as an alternative to the Canadian model, arguing that Canada was an instance of amalgamation rather than federation. Um, I'm kind of curious as to, like, is that true? Probably, possibly, I mean. Was sentiment expressed by some during the way to avoid the weakness of the American. Some blame for the Ah, contrast the framers of the Australian Constitution ultimately adopted a model closer to that is which better protected states' rights. That's so interesting that they did actually do that from America. A model closer to that of the United States was endorsed, with states able to act completely independently apart from those limited powers transferred to the federal government, and where each state would be represented equally in a strong second chamber, the Senate. See, this is the weird thing with Australia is where like we do have a lot of things that are similar to America and how they do it, but we're also in a lot of ways very similar to England and how they do it. And so it can sometimes be a bit confusing to people. Clark's draft constitutions, obviously, there's the constitution thing. To conduct an appeal on behalf of the government of Tasmania during the Privy Council. During this trip, he began writing a draft constitution, taking the main provisions of the British North America Act 1867 and its supplements up through 1890. The US Constitution, the Federal Council of Australasia Act, and various Australian colonial constitutions. Clark returned from London by way of Boston, Massachusetts, where he held discussions about his draft with Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr. and Moncure Conway, among others. They was an American jurist who served as an associate justice. Supreme Court. Okay, well, became a Supreme Court guy eventually. Wasn't a minister and radical. Oh. Clark's draft included introduced the nomenclature and form which was subsequently adopted. The Australian Federation is described as the Commonwealth of Australia. There are three separate and equal branches to the Parliament, the Executive, and the Judicature. I would have preferred they stuck with judiciary. That would have been so much easier. The legislature consists of a House of Representatives and a Senate. It specified the separation of powers and the division of powers between the federal and state governments. That's right, because there is a difference between the two. Because one is a one is about these three, and the other is about these two. I'm going to say separation is state. I'm just curious, is all. Fuck. So the division of powers is state, and the yeah, because then the separation of powers is judicial. Yeah, judicial. Why didn't they say judicial? Legislative and executive. Yep. Upon his return to Hobart in early November 1890 with the technical aid of W.O. Wise, the Tasmanian parliamentary draftsman Clark completed the final form of the draft constitution and had a number of copies printed. In February 1891, Clark circulated copies of his draft to Parkes, Barton, and probably Playford as well. This draft was always intended to be a private working document and was never published. Was proposed a House of Representatives and a Senate. The House of Representatives was to be elected by and drawn up on the basis of their population, while in the Senate was to be equal representation for each province. Yeah, fucking terrible idea. This American model was mixed with the Westminster system by which the Prime Minister and other ministers would be appointed by the representative of the British Crown from among. Wait, what? Would be appointed by the representative of the British Crown, so the Governor General, from among the members of the political party holding a majority in the lower. And other ministers would be. Okay. Griffith identified with great clarity at the Sydney Convention perhaps the greatest problem of all, how to structure the relationship between the lower and upper houses, how to structure a relationship within it. The main division of opinion centered on the contention of Alfred Deakin that the lower house must be supreme, as opposed to the views of Barton, John Cockburn, and others, that a strong Senate with coordinate powers was essential. What was Deakin sort of more aligned as far as a leader of the Protectionists and that of the Liberal Party? Okay. Put us into a union with the free traders. Two-party system. Allowed him to form Australia's first majority government. Man, it's so interesting seeing what the issues were of the day, hey? Where are we? Yeah, the law must be supreme. Griffith himself recommended that the doctrine of responsible government should be left open or substantially modified to accord with the federal structure. Over the Easter weekend in 1891, Griffith edited Clark's draft aboard the Queensland government's steam yacht. Lucinda was not present as he was ill with influenza in Sydney. Griffith's draft constitution was submitted to the colonial parliaments, but it lapsed in New South Wales, after which the other colonies were unwilling to proceed. That's all right, guys. We'll just do it the next year. Oh, I'm finding this interesting. I'm going to take a moment. Let's just do a little refresh. Nah, nothing. Is this from Can you explain the exact year? All right. I will be back in 1 sec. I'm just going to go to the toilet and whatnot. Okay. 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 We are back. I actually might deviate for a brief moment to a quick little refresh. Oh, here we go.
25 seasons.
Oh, I need to change where the source of here.
Comes to an end.
There we go. Let me just make sure.
Good night. With that, the 2025 season comes to an end. Good night.
Okay, hold up, hold up, hold up, hold up. I thought this was going to be something with like fucking Beck Freedom's voice. Wait, she posted this, right? Yeah, she posted this. Sorry, I just wanted to see like, how the far right was celebrating their New Year's, and I mean, it's hard to keep up. Let's see. Australia Day 2025 event flyers. Try get to one if you can. Try get to one if you can to the event flyers. 15 Australian nationalist accounts suspended within 30 minutes tonight over on X. Free speech is free speech. But I thought Elon Musk brought back free speech. I thought he freed the speech. He freed comedy, remember? Comedy was free again. Or legal again, I should say. I'm confused. I don't get it. Ah! It still just goes so fast. Is it just me, or does Malcolm look extremely nervous and confused in this? This was a huge fucked up. This was a huge fuck up by One Nation. Australia's new hate speech bill is a violation of free speech. Oh, because I think they're referring to because Pauline Hanson's like pretty bought in by the Zionists. I think that's what this is sort of subtly getting at. I just want to actually, sorry, I just want to, yeah. Oh, so you can see me there. Try and do it more like that. I just don't want to have like my housemate get on camera by accident. Yeah, that'll do it for now. And then if I go, yeah, cool. I like to lean back anyway. So I'm guessing that's what that's about. And then what was the other one? Okay, we're just saying just Albo. Just Albo. Okay, yeah, we've got Matt Tree. Yep, oh, and then we had Jesse. Courtesy of Chris Discoveries. What's next for? Is it just flicking through these with like barely a second for each? Mass migration data from 2021. This recent available shows that we had approximately. I mean, this has already been. I mean, evidently, like this is an old post of hers, but I mean, see, I came into doing like media-related stuff um, because of homelessness, because I was looking into homelessness in Brisbane. So I actually understand a lot of the stats around homelessness and a lot of the I don't know, the tricks that people play with the numbers, let's say. 'Cause I just want to see here. So data from 2021, which is the most recent available, shows that we have approximately 122,494 homeless people. Out of those, approximately 28,204 were under 18. Ah, well, I guess, yeah. Another shocking figure from 2021 is that just over 18,000 migrants were also homeless. Yes, a lot of them are, most of which arrived throughout the previous 5 years, with refugees and asylum seekers overrepresented. Oh my God, overrepresented. Yes, that is true. So we are literally adding to the pre-existing problem by letting these people in. No, no. See, this is the problem with the reactionary mindset. This is the problem with the reactionary mindset because that she is only looking at this within, she is only allowing herself to look at this issue within the guidelines, within the guardrails of it being an immigration issue. So we can do two things at the same time here. We can sort out the issue of housing supply, which even if we were, like by your own admission, only 18,000 migrants were also homeless, meaning that not even going to bother with the kids number here, but out of that, it's only 18,000 migrants. Now, obviously, things might be a bit different now because it's now literally 5 years later. We're probably going to get new data about this soon, like in the coming year. Uh, it, it, we can chew gum and walk at the same time, where we are dealing with the housing supply, which is already going to still be an issue even if you deal with the migrants. And then you have to also consider the fact that a lot of migrants are a huge backbone of the um, like construction industry, building industry, like the houses. We need migrants in order to build the houses that we need to to house just those who are actually already living here, like actual citizens. Because that's the thing. Um, unless you're a very special case of like a refugee or asylum seeker, and this is sort of the issue that's happening here, that happens here, is you only get are allowed access to the services available to the homeless, especially when it's state services, if you're a citizen. Uh, at least that's how I understand it in Queensland. Might be different in I know Beg Freedom's in Sydney or New South Wales. You need to be a citizen in order to do it because you'll be like asked for like your Centrelink number or something like that. Uh, so like I'm also like kind of simplifying here, but like unless you're a refugee or asylum seeker, because a lot of times though you can get like a sort of like a special class situation. But we're talking about like what often it ends up like in Australia, what ends up coming into Australia of those people who come into Australia, it's like maybe 1,000. We're a country of 26 million people, maybe even more now. So like it's 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 just such a minuscule number to be concerned about. This part, that is. Now, um, in regards to housing in general, like homeless people, the large number of homeless people here, a lot of this is because of housing policy and obviously like rental policy and I don't know, like just general fiscal policy. And a lot of that shit, not only like has been nascent since like has just been set and forgotten, like set and forget since like Howard, but has probably only, if anything, been strengthened. Like the deregulation, the tax breaks, all of that. So once again, you can get rid of immigration. Let me finish what she's saying. Despite this, immigration and the intake of refugees continued during 2021. Like to be clear, when we say immigration and then we say refugees, refugees is quite often a very, very small number of immigration or immigrants per year or whatever. At lower rates due to COVID. Despite this, immigration and the intake of refugees continued during 2021 at lower rates due to COVID. We took in almost 6,000 refugees and roughly 150,000 immigrants. Okay, maybe I'm wrong by saying like it's only 1,000, but even 6,000 is not really that many people when you think about it, when you really think about it in the grand scheme of things. 150,000 immigrants is also like not really that much when you really think about it. I don't know. Maybe I'm just so brain blasted by like American politics and like their stats for things. So like I'm just so used to seeing like trillions, billions, millions, barely ever thousands. So Jesus. Jump scare. Beck Freedom jump scare. Will you be live streaming on the? Oh yeah, I remember. Calling for a stop to mass immigration is not being racist. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. There is no shame. I don't know why they're still trying to pull this bullshit. I know this is like an old post from well, August, which I find it funny that that's the one that she decided to pick to put in for the August section. Belmore Park, Sydney, hashtag. Was this in September? I thought it was October. Or was this a different thing? Or maybe she's just completely forgotten when things happened. Who is ready for another March for Australia? That's as much as Charlie Kirk gets, but we had to throw him in there for the mix. I think we also, what kind of music are we using here? This is something I would expect to hear on like Nova FM. I think we all need to practice and learn some lyrics before October 19th. See, like I appreciate when they have those statements because it's like it's a little bit more humanizing for them because it's like I think we all need to practice and learn some of the lyrics. It's like all right, you're admitting faults. Taking out my earrings. You're not like insane and like completely. Wait a second, I recognize something there. Oh my God, I remember when this happened. I don't know why again. This is like for September or whatever. This was August. This was August 31st. This was the MFA um, on August 31st. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty certain. Anyways, if this is what I believe it is, this was in Brisbane. I actually believe I know. You can't really see, but you can kind of make out a hand. But this is in a subway in Brisbane, in like the city of Brisbane. I believe it was like Roma Street or whatever. Anyways, they went in, asked to get meals, and the person who was serving, like I said, I know them, not that much, but anyways, they're like alt punk, lefty, pretty common in Brisbane, honestly, and they just said, "No, I'm not serving you. I don't serve Nazis." Now, maybe these guys weren't personally Nazis. I don't know, but they got shitty about it, and afterwards passed on the footage that they took, which they went in, they were refused, they came back out, and then they turned the phone on, and then came back in and were asking like, why won't you serve us? What? Because I've got the Australian flag. How an Australian? Why are you calling me a Nazi for wearing the Australian flag? Like they they had left and then chose to come back in to film, and then pass that footage on to Beck Freedom, and then she obviously signal boosted it out to everyone, and the person lost their job. The person did lose their job because of it, because there was so much backlash over it, which is very funny. Not that they lost their job, but very funny in that. What was that again about accounts being suspended and we no longer have free speech? Fuck man, we have way so much going here. Save the date, October 19th, March for Australia. Are you ready to march again? This is their personality. This is their personality. Like, I know I definitely give off big, politics is my personality kind of vibes. But to be fair, I choose that, like, because I find politics really interesting. It's a way that I see the world in. But like, it's not that common actually for lefties and progressives to really make politics a big part of their personality. Like they'll wear it on their sleeve kind of thing, wear it on their shirt or whatever, but it's not really actually their personality. Like when you actually get to know them, like it's more like, maybe the music that they're into or movies, whatever. Obviously every individual's an individual, but it really is their personality for these people. Ah! It goes so quickly. I just want to see what they're all about. 19th of October and mass migration. I thought it was mass migration, mass immigration. You can't keep changing it up because it gets difficult to keep it consistent. Protect our heritage, our culture, and our way of life. It's always like, what way of life are you trying to protect? Like, think about what those words mean. The way, our way of life. The way we do life. Can you point at anyone, any set of people in Australia and go, yep, together, that is a great representation of the way, like in Australia, our way of life. You're going to get different shit from each individual person. I'm forgetting that it's so quick. Yeah, this was it. On August 31st. I can still not tell where like we're actually like what are you up to this weekend? I'll be out posting flyers up and doing mailbox. I actually never saw any flyers for any of the events in and around Brisbane and whatnot. Um, Obviously, I'm not going to say where I am in Brisbane, but like not any near where I live, not any around any of the different places around Brisbane I have to go to. Uh, Nowhere in the city, nothing. Are you ready to march for Australia? Most major cities and this was the one where it was so much smaller. Should probably just show New South Wales. Nationalism done right. Shows like maybe like a very very sweet Vietnamese lady or whatever. Can someone tell me what mass migration is? Because in 2025 it was 1.14% of the population. Hardly seems like mass migration. Yeah, exactly. That was it. If anything, you provided the you. I wonder if she put much thought into the different ones that she was going to show, that she was going to put in it. We used to have so much pride in our country. I honestly actually think I could be totally talking out of my ass here, but I actually honestly do think that you would find more people more expressively proud of Australia today than any other time in Australian history. I actually think so. Like in the sense of like the energy, the consistency of that energy, the delusionalness sometimes, but also like from the crazy to even like the somewhat reasonable. Like like your dad who is just like proud of the country, but it doesn't really like mean that much. Like he just likes Australia, thinks the place is a beautiful place and things like that. Like more like positive things that you can sort of relate to. Um, I honestly think we probably have more of that now than we ever have before in relation to Australia, Australiana, all that sort of stuff. Because we're a really young country when we really get down to it. Like, I mean, hey, 1901 was Federation when we were actually a country, not just a bunch of random colonies that shared the same landmass, the same large landmass. Like, and they were even considering Fiji and New Zealand. Like, it was obviously not even going to be a thing about race. I mean, I don't know. I guess I would have to look into a bit more about what was going on with Fiji. If you are one of those people who plan on not providing your ID to social media platforms in December, to be able to, well, this is just good old product placement, basically. What is that? Oh yeah, they're just so quick. Who's gonna keep up with this? March Australian events will never be cancelled. I do not know what cancelled means anymore. Like, do we mean like just the event is cancelled? Like, like you just can't do the event? Rainy day, had to cancel it. Or do we mean like cancel culture cancelled? That's the thing with this shit. Like, it fucks the English language for you. They fuck the English language much more than any, like, trans woman, jihadi, like, communist or whatever. They're just working within the means that they're given. Oh, hang on. Do we have potential entertainment? Nah, I don't really know any of these people. That would be probably rather boring. I don't know why I just did that. Well, that was fun. We got to see how Beck's feeling today. I'm glad she's happy. You know what? I'm gonna give it a like. Show the love. Show the love. What was this? Just, yep, cool. You never know. Is this a real person? Probably. Probably. Let's see here. I feel great too. We found out about this guy yesterday. Oh yeah, sorry, I'm fine. I'm fine. Sorry, I don't mean to be like pulling up individuals here. Well, maybe they should be joining these streams. Then they might. No. I only just realized I haven't set this to record, so that'll be annoying. But whatever. It's New Year's Day. Whoever gives a fuck on New Year's Day? Boom, 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 boom. Doesn't this guy just look like exactly the kind of person who best rep who is a who best symbol sim best represents the superiority of the white race? Like, dude, you look like a rat, like a mole rat. Have I got you included? No, I do not. I've forgotten about this guy. This guy was involved with he's fucking nuts. He's crazy. Enemy of the revolution. That's an interesting thing to willingly say. Views expressed are no one's. I hate when they say this shit because it's like, okay, we who doesn't know that? Um, yeah, he just looks like a fucking mole rat. What I'm going to be doing in to come is I'm going to be looking more closely at each of these kind of characters on the Australian far right. It's not just going to be MFA because obviously now there's a little bit of change with all of the individuals, all of the players involved, namely what's happened in Queensland. But there's also a lot of individuals who are rather interesting, but they're not directly, and they're very present in the community on here at least, but they're not like directly involved in MFA, at least that we know so far, kind of thing. So um, that should give me plenty of honestly this entire year to come to be looking at. It's not the what the fuck? Christian activist. Mediasa. Oh, I love it. Can you really call the Muslim Brotherhood pamphlets just like pamphlets the concept? No, no. Can you really call the Muslim Brotherhood activists? You know? So I'm just looking to see if there's like anything interesting happening at the moment, which naturally leads to you to have to scroll through a lot of fucking shit. Oh dear, what have I done here? I have to just. Is this an AI chick? We will try to portray her as a far-right bigot, but don't let them. Okay. Still organize a national tribute to the late Jabata family. Okay. Says we have too many migrants living in Hotel Australia. Once again, yeah. So true, Glenn. So true. Tony Abbott's always spot on, you know. Do they like still like him or whatever? Is he still beloved amongst them? I I thought like Tony Abbott was kind of disgraced. I mean, like he obviously still does stuff. He's still um tolerated or whatever among the upper classes and whatnot. But like, because he did his book recently, but it's more so just like I didn't think actual people would. I mean, the guy isn't standing him or whatever, but. Oh yeah, let's have a look at this. This was something that Scotty Chow put out, which I saw before.
I am so bloody tired of paying taxes just for it to go down the drain. Every single year, billions gets pissed away on fraud and dodgy shit. And you all see it. Have a look at all this NDIS stuff that's coming out at the moment.
That's right, I forgot. That's why I wasn't really wanting to. That's why I didn't really have this come to mind when it came to like what would I have a look at for this, because like it's so obvious that this is just heavily inspired by all of the bullshit going on in America, Minnesota, the whole like Somali fraud bullshit. I mean, I know that there is more involved in the NDIS providers fraud story than it being simply like inspired by what's happening in America, but I don't know, these guys suddenly have taken great big interest in it all of a sudden.
Hundreds of millions, sometimes billions of dollars ripped off by bastards claiming payments for people who are either sitting in prison or didn't get services anyway. It's all a scam. And don't get me started on shit like robo-debt either. That illegal mess cost taxpayers nearly $2 billion in repayments that never should have happened. It wrecked people's lives and we're still paying out compensation for it. We're always paying. It's always us.
Hang on. When you say we're always paying, it's always us, you mean like I assume he's meaning the Australian taxpayer, but like the issue there was like yeah, we you know pushed on debts to people who didn't actually have debts. Um, so then obviously some of them tried to pay that money, and then we've had to try and pay them back. Obviously, like how are you going to pay that back? A lot of that actual like the money that it act like you don't simply just bring back the literal like dollar note or whatever. Um, so yes, of course we have to pay for that. I don't know. Maybe I'm being really overly
And then you've
particular
got all
there.
these climate splash outs. It's billions chucked at net zero scams.
There we go. There we go. Sorry. Okay. There we go. Now I get it. Now I get it. The robo debt thing, was bad, and we shouldn't, and that was wrong. But it's just another example of how we still have to pay taxes for like others, or whatever. And that's like the one thing that maybe like a populist would be like, oh yeah, okay, cool, he gets it, he gets it. And then the rest is all straight back into like conspiratorial bullshit.
Emissions targets and green programs while power bills keep going up. They keep going up. Businesses are leaving the country because they can't afford the electricity here. People are
Is that true? Are companies leaving the country because they can't afford electricity anymore? Oh, people
Bloody
have
homeless because of it. In
because of what again? Because we're paying taxes and that money is being used on climate change stuff. Thus, our electricity has gotten higher. Like the cost of electricity has gone higher. Thus, people have gone homeless. That doesn't even make sense. Most people who have ended up homeless, either other than like generally speaking, it's a domestic violence case. It's like they've escaped a domestic violence case. Outside of that, if it's just like cost reasons, it's normally like the rent is too much. It also is normally like not so much like the rent's too much in the area, whatever. It's also more that they weren't able to find something within their like within the range they could actually realistically achieve within the time that they had to move. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different reasons. Um, I don't think it's because our electricity is costing more.
every capital city, they're homeless. And in my own state of Queensland, we just spent millions and billions wasted on cost blowouts for infrastructure.
This is really interesting. Why are we showing a picture of Anastasia Palaszczuk? I mean, this is an article in 2025. Shouldn't this be more so about the Liberal government at the moment, the current Liberal government? This is less on about fucking Scotty here. It's more about the Courier Mail thing. It's just a very interesting like choice of framing.
Projects that never finish. They're never on time or on budget.
Sometimes things cost more than you realize. I don't know.
I'm
But yes, apparently they have been doing some really dumb shit in regards to the Cross River Rail, but also like I said, Liberal government.
over it. I'm over it. I want my hard earned money going to things that actually matter and not just lining the pockets of corrupt.
So I want that as well. I would want I agree. I do to an extent sympathize, empathize, relate to the idea that if I have to pay taxes, as much as I may not want to pay taxes or a certain amount of taxes or whatever, at least I would be happy if I know it's going to things I think is good or like, good things, things that help us or whatever, whatever it could be is different for every person. Anyway, I am too. The problem here is, and maybe this is a bit conceited because I just don't think someone like Scotty Chow is going to be on board with this. The issue with all of these things that you're referring to in that, like we have to keep pumping more and more money into it, and we're not really getting our money's worth. Now, let me suggest a solution that doesn't really feel like it's been tried that much. I'm going to get real broad with it. When we do those big funds, projects, whatever, even with like NDIS and the providers, we are getting the public government to collaborate with private business. Those private businesses set the prices. Maybe sometimes the government can negotiate them down, but generally speaking, the companies set the prices. And so the government is is having to get together their funding to fund paying them to do the job. Now, then there's other issues where it's like sometimes it's like we're spending money to get the resources to pay for the people to work, and then we'll award them additional money just for doing it or some shit, and then they get to own it. Like we do all sorts of stupid stuff as a part of that sort of arrangement. What if we just took out the business aspect? What if we just did it ourselves? Fuck it. We have the money. We being like the public interest, the government obviously being the representative of that, or a large, all-encompassing representative. Why don't we just do it? Because then we set our own prices, and in a lot of the cases we will have our own shit. Oh well, how are we going to get the resources without having to just pay other corporations? Like we're still going to have to pay a corporation to buy from their supply of whatever resource. Keep it simple, just say steel. All right, let's nationalize them. Let's nationalize the resources. Once again, take the business aspect out of it. Just to get the government to do it, to handle that. Or at least like that's where it's getting the resources from. These used to be things that I say like, a new idea that hasn't been tried. I just mean like within like say the past 50-ish years. I don't know. Yeah, 50, no, not even like 30 years. Outside of that, this used to be more common. Maybe not to the full extent I'm expressing, but like there was a bit more of a jumping off pad to be like, hey, we can at least agree that the government has some responsibility of involvement here. Anyway.
Politicians looking for votes in their ethnic enclave.
I mean, I will admit, I'm starting to come around. I don't want this to come off as like I'm you have to hand it to the far right. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I am starting to think classic case of never get a liberal to do, never trust a liberal to debate a fascist, you know, because or like to handle the fascists properly, because they always do the wrong things. Like, I don't think Labour is trying to actively appeal to ethnic enclaves or whatnot. I don't think that's what's going on at all. But like, fuck, man, the shit that they're doing recently, with, like since Bondi, with like the menorah or whatever it's called, at the fucking Sydney Harbour Bridge, it's like I don't really, I just, how do you not expect to be creating more neo-Nazis when you see that? Like, it's literally what would create neo-Nazis. And so, like, I just think the Labour Party, I'm starting to call this like Labour liberals, where it's like they're really just liberals, like little L liberals, but it's the Labour Party, you know. Um, uh, uh, they sort of just, oh, I lost my point. What was it? They sort of just, not that I agree with the point that Scotty's making here. I guess I can sort of understand why these people, given what they're geared up, what they're set up to view things, how they view things, because they don't, people need to realize that they don't, it doesn't matter what these people think. It matters how they think. It doesn't really matter so much like what they're going to say on a given issue. It matters how they are viewing just things, like how they actually view these things. When an action happens, are they viewing it accurately, or are they viewing it in a very, like better words, biased point of view?
The rorts never end. The only people that actually work in this.
And like they are only going to like it. Basically, what I'm saying is you can be always doing good things that are like objectively take out people's opinion, like just objectively as a good thing, but they are so geared up to see it as a bad thing. That's sort of what I mean, to be clear.
Country, you, me, the rest of us that put our nose down and get up and get going every single day. The guys who put on the high vis.
He's the CEO of his own company, to be clear, guys. I don't think he gets up in the morning and puts on a high vis anymore. Maybe he does, you can, I guess you can technically still be a CEO of your own company, and be working on the job. I don't know. I don't know what it's like. I don't know what he does specifically. Well, I guess he's a CEO. I guess that's the answer to it.
The tradies, the coppers, the nurses, the teachers.
Yeah. Yeah, the people who get up in the morning and work hard every day. Tradies and then the coppers. Also, why are you mentioning the nurses and the teachers? You probably hate them both. You probably fight against both of their unions, or despise both of the unions and despise the opinions of nurses and teachers in general, like en masse. Both of these groups are extremely, maybe not necessarily left-leaning, but at least progressive.
The small business owners.
Hang on, you are tax cattle. Just need to see something. Yeah. You tax cattle for the political class. Social security taxes, property taxes, estate taxes, payroll taxes, capital gains taxes, income taxes, excess taxes. Okay, yep, tax. Gonna say this right now. I fucking called this. I knew that all Scotty Chow was gonna really be about with this whole thing is just he doesn't want to pay taxes. He just doesn't want to pay taxes because he actually probably earns a good amount of money because he's the CEO of his own company. So he just doesn't want to pay taxes anymore. I knew that was going to be his reason for like doing all of this. It's branding. It's branding and then a means of achieving goals here, achieving political goals ultimately. Um, I would honestly say if you take your opinions from anyone who only views like what's going on in government and its relation to like just the everyday person, if you can only view it as, oh, we're just getting taxed way too much. Um, they're trying to they're trying to rot you.
All of us out there grinding away for a country that doesn't give a fuck about you.
Well, then why do it? Why grind away at it if they don't give a fuck about you? Like the funny thing is, in theory, they could just like if they wanted to. This is how you know they don't really actually believe the things that they claim that much. Less so Scotty Charlie, I guess. More so like the real racist ones. Is like if they wanted to be like the ultimate white supremacist and whatnot, they would want them. They would be like, yeah, yeah, sure, bring in all the immigrants, and like us citizens, um, are gonna, don't worry, you're not a frame. All us citizens can just fucking be on Centrelink while all the immigrants do the jobs. And they could probably get away with it. I mean, not entirely. I mean, that's kind of what a lot of the far right is a lot of people who are on Centrelink who are in denial of the fact that they are like kind of a part of the problem that they blame or whatever. Um, but like, okay, why are you working if the country for the country like you're not working for the country though. You're working for a boss. This is another important thing I find to keep in mind with all of these people, actually, all of these types, is you'll notice, like, oh, working for the country. So, what, as a public servant, do you mean? Like the teachers and the nurses you were talking about before? Because if you're talking about just like general tradies and whatnot, I mean, some of them might be government employees, true, but uh, if we're just talking about like the um, private market workplace, which I imagine Scotty Chow is much more in favor of. It's like, let me just tilt this a little bit. It's like, it's like, well, you're working for a boss. That's not the country. You're working for your boss. So keep that in mind. This weird like melding of uh, working for an employer with the idea of working for the country.
They don't care about you. You are just tax cattle to them. In 2026, we're going to change this. We are going to change this.
Oh yeah, we're going to change this in 26. Oh yeah, and here we go, the Australian Lobby Group. I knew it was coming. I can't wait for this thing to start. I want to see them door knocking because it's supposed to be Scotty Chow, Sam Bamford, and Bender. Shut up, you. Um, and I just want to see like video after video on their Twitter accounts, especially the Australian Lobby Group, of them just like knocking door to door at politicians in Canberra and like just being shooed off by security and whatnot because it's like fuck off. It's not how this shit works. Let an appointment, cunt. Oh shit, sorry, we got more to watch here.
This is why we started the Australian Lobby Group. We started it because no one is listening to us in Canberra anymore. Political representation barely.
I know I'm pausing this like every minute, but you know, say you get past all of the DCMA, whatever it is, fucking shit in on your YouTube. No, but also like it's just it's moments like these that make me realize that they don't really realize the full weight of the words that they use. Like when you say like no one in Canberra is listening to us, it's like so no one. And I know that they mean government, they mean parliament. No one. So you're now saying no one is listening to anyone. Okay.
Really exists. Lobbying owns this country. And now we're going to get on the same field as them and we're going to play the game the way these guys play the game.
So the reason why people are thinking this might be a scam is because it's like we're going to get on the same level, we're going to get on the same game with them. Lobbying owns country. Yeah, how do you think it? Like, let's just say lobbying owns the country. I mean, I think it gets a bit more in depth than that, but you know, it's definitely a mechanism. It's definitely a mechanism that is highly used to be in control or whatever of the country. But how do you think they get the means of doing that? A lot of money.
Game, and we're going to make sure they know who you are. If you want to support us in the work that we're
Yeah, there we go.
doing, if this message resonated with you, the Australian Lobby Group, auslobby.com.au, you'll see the link there. Jump on, you can donate, you can help, you can sponsor, and you can also become a member of the Lobby Group. Let's take the fight to Canberra in 2026.
Oh, that's cute. We're including that it's like an additional product placement. Well, there we go. We got to see that for a moment. Jesus, we're really posting all of the Federation bullshit. Posting all of it. White liberal women are the. True. So true. Never spoken truer words in my life. Except the United Nations President report, the very title, replacement migration. Not my words, not Elon's words, you know. Oh God, it's probably one of those cases where like the UN was looking at something legitimate just out of curiosity. Yeah, would need to offset declining birth rates, blah blah, and they're gonna say like, oh well, there you go, the replacement theory is real. Oh God. Forces fired shotguns and tear gas at protesters attacking a government building on Wednesday amid Greta Thunberg silent, Francesca Albanese silent, Mehdi Hassan silent, Cenk Uygur silent, Anna Kasparian silent, the media silent, the UN silent. What? Asking where the kids love them. Oh, fuck me. This is just straight up harassment, what's going on in Minnesota. Like that's what it is. Like, is the point new multicultural Australia? Is the point here, ew, there's blacks, or is the point here, oh my God, like it's just not enough room. Like, bro, it's New Year's Eve in Sydney. What the fuck did you expect? Oh, I don't actually know where she's from. I think that actually might be Melbourne. Oh, that's right. This free speech will have to go to preserve multi. I actually genuinely do believe. Hang on. Sean Thomas. I'm starting to genuinely believe that there, like, some of these articles that you sometimes see that pop around are literally like, I know this is like conspiratorial, but are like bought and paid for kind of things. Like it's a hack job, like well more than intentional hack job. Sean Thomas. Hang on, sorry, Telegraph. Mhm. Okay. What does this mean? Does this mean it's good or does this mean it's bad? It's the implication I'm getting from it. Oh, well, he's not even advocating for it. Oh, sorry, hang on. Free peoples and the multiplication of slave states are for us a means. This is okay. Never mind. Never mind. I can't get. You give them a moment. You decide to hear them out for a moment, and you before you know it, are just smashed in the face with so much dumb shit. Just to be hit with 21 new taxes. Okay. Yeah, yeah, legit. Uh, Wait, what? Says he now supports Australia's hate speech laws, but wants them enforced equally. He once promised to get rid of the laws, which have since been strengthened multiple times and are about to become even stricter. Interesting. I do want to hear this.
I think that there's been quite a double standard when it comes to enforcing hate speech laws.
Of course.
If you or I say something which is offensive,
Does he have all of his books behind him or something like that? Or like the 2 books he wrote? It must be his office.
to Muslims, for instance, we're likely to be in all sorts of trouble. But
It couldn't have even just been a white woman who was talking to it.
radical Islamists can say what they like in terms of globalising the Intifada, murdering the IDF, F the Jews, gas the Jews.
Okay, well now we're sort of combining a few different slogans, a few different catchphrases. I think you might be thinking of someone else. Oops.
Is offensive, likely to be in all sorts of trouble. Islamists can say what they like in terms of globalising the Intifada, murdering the IDF, F the Jews, gas the Jews, etc., and nothing happens. So I think there's nothing wrong with
That's not entirely true. Oh wait, of course, because he's advocating for
the laws as they stand. They just need to be enforced equally as opposed to partially. I think that there's been
Oh, right. So basically, he's just saying like, oh no, the issue isn't that they need to make the law stronger. The issue is that they just need to be enforced equally because you before were allowed to say the Jews and blah de blah. But I don't know. It's bad to push. It's proposed one back of the Racial Discrimination Act. Ah. 10 poll coalition policy leading into the 2013 election. I remember that the controversial changes which would have seen the repeal of several sections of the act, including 18C, were abandoned following months of community consultation. This guy is like Nazi or whatever. Like, I don't know what the fuck their deal is, but that's the vibes they give. Well, there goes listing. Design of RPM. The script. He's really having to do a lot there with those police state multiculturalism. Hang on, I need to. Oh, for God, they fucking. Yeah. Police state multiculturalism. Fuck, that's good. 8 days before he was arrested over Telegram posts and thrown in jail. I mean, so we're doing another story for Joel Davis. Like, mind you, the Noticer has done like fucking 100 of them. Yeah, police state multiculturalism. What a stupid term. Wait, where does that take you? Oh, they've been okay. So this is a term they're trying to popularize. That's what they're doing. Political establishment no longer in principle hold Australia to be a liberal democracy. Dude, you're a neo-Nazi. You're a neo-Nazi. What do you mean? Like, maybe, alright, sure, but like, you're a neo-Nazi. You don't fucking hold that in principle either. Never mind that they will still call it a democracy. A political class really means multiculturalism when they say democracy now, and they view it as the role of the police, not civil society, to deal with its critics and dissenters. I just don't even think they know what they're saying again. Once again, I just don't think they understand the words that they are using. Some readers dismiss the piece as hyperbolic. Really? These readers? So you made it clear that police state, like they're really trying to make it a word. They really want it to be a word. It's not only a real phenomenon, but it's very real. It's a real phenomenon. Our proof. Um, Chris Minns says he hates free speech, which he didn't even, but whatever. Um, is not only a real phenomenon, but far worse than Davis made it seem. Oh, don't worry, Joel Davis, even he's not woke enough to understand how severe police state multiculturalism is. New South Wales Premier Chris Minns has done more than anyone else to prove. This is what I mean by the Labor, Labor's Labor's liberals, liberal Labor liberal. Yeah, Labor's liberals, whatever. But like, because it's not even so much like they're just saying it as like just fucking. They're just trying. I mean, in all fairness, the Labour Party and also the Liberal Party would be doing the same thing. Are just trying to make sure that their contract deals and whatnot with the Israeli government and things with America are all G. Because keep in mind, like somehow these people think, they understand, think like, yeah, America, like Trump and whatnot, real cool. But even then, Trump and America, all of it, still doing all the Israeli shit. Like, sorry, I shouldn't be trying to rationalize and make sense of them. My bad, I'm sorry. Minns, who is not even a good local member, ask locals in. Yeah, just ask locals in as a lecturer. Why didn't you? Why didn't you? Why didn't you provide some quotes? This isn't journalism if you're just saying, like, you're the one who's supposed to ask them. Otherwise, this is just you doing a blog. And has made a series of extraordinary and accelerating statements and political decisions that have removed all doubt that A, we still live in a liberal democracy, and B, that multiculturalism can succeed without the suppression of the very civil liberties necessary for a democracy to function via ruthless and two-tiered police and judicial enforcement. Like, uh, w- this website, the Noticer, and like everything that comes with like the Noticer, had dedicated so much of its content milling to just like regurgitating basically police press releases for whenever they arrested people. And so they were just this guy is basically just like looking at like, all right, in Western Australia, a black guy got arrested. All right, looking into the details about that one. Oh, this one over in Victoria, white guy, not gonna bother about that one. And like they just details like he just rewrites in colorful language the fucking crime. And it's just rage bait. It's supposed to just make you get mad and like racist. Um, who do you think was arresting the black people? I just, how is it a two-tiered police system when all of the stories that you typically talk about is them getting arrested? To be fair, there are a few where it's like where the whole point is that they like get let off or whatever, but like even then, come on now. The Premier's repeated statements that residents of New South Wales cannot have free speech. I'm sure that is literally what he said. I'm sure that is literally what Chris Minns said. Like, come on, he's I give the guy a bit more credit than that. And even then, always a important reminder, unfortunately, Australia doesn't have free speech. We never were given it. We don't have it. So you can say how much like we don't have free speech. That was already the case. Because it's incompatible with multiculturalism, not only prove Davis's point, but they made global whatever. Batman, Sean Thomas wrote okay, yeah. Right. Laws to disarm law abiding. Yeah, and I'm sure this is a very, very unbiased. The Victorian Premier banning anonymous social media accounts. Does the Victorian Premier have the ability to ban anonymous social media accounts? What, on X? Police sparing no expenses hunting down. Very charged language. And charging right-wing white Australians with the capitals, very charged for stickers, expos, swords, PDFs. PDFs of what? Videos, hoodies, necklaces, boats, tattoos. Why? What did these things have? See, like, I don't really care. Well, I guess to me, it's like, I just don't really care about the result of, like, whether or not they get in trouble for it, because it's like, I'm just more interested in, like, will you admit what it is? Because minorities might be offended. I don't think even that's what the police care about. It's just, it's, when people say, like, the social cohesion, it's not minorities getting offended. It's the fact that you people freak the fuck out and kill people. Mintz saying just today that police will throw the book at anyone caught delivering political flyers for White Australia, calling them an incitement to racial hatred. The thing is, as well, like with the NSN and all that stuff, like so far, all the NSN have actually done to demonstrate, like in the public, like for public matters, regardless of all the like whatever whatever people are ever able to find out about the NSN and what they're doing behind the scenes, when it comes to what the public has actually noticed about them, they seem like a criminal organization. Like, they seem like a criminal organization. They literally fucking beat up a bunch of mostly old people, old First Nations folk at Thingo, Camp Sovereignty. And even if you don't include that one, there's other shit that they've been involved in more like individually and whatnot. It kind of really just leans every any other person to to the conclusion that they're a criminal organization to some degree. Which kind of means that they're kind of terrorists because of the fact that it's political. So it, I don't like this incitement to racial hatred because, mm, I don't know. I guess as well, like, oh mate here is probably covering up the quote here a bit. My point being is there is actually like an easy case to make that like, well, like the in this specific case, like flyers for White Australia or maybe the party whole thing, like kind of does does kind of show links to a criminal organization, thus criminal activity. Well, oh yeah, I need to see this. The deportation of South African national Matthew Grutter. Yep, not a citizen, not Australian. for peacefully protesting against the Jewish. I love when they say this, peacefully protesting against the Jewish lobby. You weren't protesting against the Jewish lobby. You were out the front of the New South Wales government and you had a banner that said, like, down with the Jewish lobby. These are two very different things, all right? It wasn't like you were face to face with the Jewish lobby or like, what do you want to say to the Jewish lobby? And there's like people on the inside of the building, like, oh shit, we better put them somewhere so that we can hide them. Evidently pointing out that 0.4% of the population seems to have a disproportionate. Okay, I actually didn't know how far the noticer went into neo-Nazism. Like, because even though it's done a lot of cushioning and laundering for the NSN, I more so was really seeing it as like, yeah, they're fashy, um, and obviously a propagandist, a demagogue, paper and whatnot, not paper, but blog. Um, but I hadn't seen anything yet about like Jewish stuff. It was more so just like now that I think about it, yeah, that's pretty obvious. But like, oh my God, that's just like such next level. Like that's literally just yeah, you're doing the Jewish question, and it's pressuring the government to take away the freedoms of the other 99.6. Now this is interesting to me. I find this interesting because what about that 0.4%? Aren't they also losing the freedoms? Also, that 99.6% includes the Indians that you want to expel. It includes, well, it excludes all the migrants that you want to expel, or at least the migrants that have become naturalized to some extent, and at least their kids. Like all these people that you want to kick out, which apparently is like a third or whatever the fuck the stats that they go with. You want to kick them out. So you don't really care about the 99.6%. It's more like 50%. And even then, you don't really care about them either because, like, you know, communists, lefties, progressives, liberals, etc., like gays. It gets to a very small number. And yeah, it's such a threat that you need to be expelled from Australia. No, he was expelled because he was not a citizen, which is its own issue. Like, I kind of don't like the fact that they did deport him. It's funny. It's very funny. I will give it that. It is very funny, but I kind of also at the same time think like, well, he's up to become our problem. Well, foreign killers, pedophiles, and rapists get to stay. Do you really think so? Do you really think they get to stay? Is that what you think happens? The protest is also the real reason Joel Davis is in jail, with authorities now declaring him a national security risk. Are they actually? I want to search that. Sure. Oh, surely there's going to be something for this. I know we've kind of completely gone off the topic from Federation, but I don't know. What can you do, eh? It's all just the notice. I just want to see if um whatever. I somehow really doubt that he was actually kept in like inhumane conditions. Would he not get a sandwich? Do we get anything else? I don't know, I was kind of hoping for a little bit more activity coming out of them, you know? No, they're quiet. They're a quiet lot. Oh, here we go. Is this... Is he done another one? Or is this the same
I
one?
am so
Yeah,
bloody
no, it's the
tired of
same one.
paying
I
taxes
don't
just
want to
for it
read
to
it.
go
I want
down the drain.
Fuck off.
Every
Fuck
single
off.
year, billions
Fuck off.
gets pissed away
What's
on
doing?
fraud
What are you
and
doing?
dodgy shit.
What are you doing? I don't want to hear you. So dangerous that most parents are afraid. How did I end up here? What the fuck are you on about, Beck? I need to eat, man. I need to eat. Um, the protest is also the real reason Joel Davis is in jail, with authorities now declaring him. That's interesting that they're making that leap, you know? Like, is that because they know that, or are they just sort of going like, well, clearly this is the real reason? Because I thought he wasn't present at it, or was he? Oh, I can't remember. There's so much of this shit, you know? So much of this shit you gotta keep up to date with. I need to go to the toilet again. I need to refill my drink. And I might also, is there anything left of this? I might, or yeah, okay, cool. That's basically it. I don't know. I just wanted to see. We never voted for police state multiculturalism. Now we must vote for whichever party will dismantle it. Okay. Wait, what? It's still, if Australians had known that multiculturalism would not only mean millions of immigrants transforming their cities and towns, but also being jailed for complaining about it, we'd still have this white Australia policy. Well, that's pretty explicit. Like, okay, so you guys are not, you're a Nazi then, right? It's pretty clear on that one. Zach Brandon. Might have a look at that in a moment. Cooker's gonna cook. Yeah, right. Yeah, I want to. Oh, fuck off. Alright, if it's gonna be like that, I'll go back to Wikipedia just at the moment. Oh, we only 2.5 hours. Wrong one. That one. This one. That one. This one. That one. This one. That one. Alright, I'm going to quickly do a refresh of myself, and then I'll come back. We'll do a little look around, see if there's anything of interest, and if not, we'll probably just finish up on the Federation stuff. Alright. probably be quite quick. I just want to see who's this guy. Zach Brandon. Probably not go, doesn't go under this name. Yeah, I doubted that. Nope, that's American. Yeah, to be honest, probably going to get a lot there. Let's see if I go the noticer. Nope. It's not an article by remigration strategy. This is very promising. Oh. Where the fuck? Who the fuck is this Zach Brandon guy? It's Zac Efron. No. Alright, whatever. Never mind, never mind, never mind. Can't have fun anymore. Where did I put my tissue? I had a tissue. Did I not? Maybe not. Fuck man, that's right. You can just fall into trips where you're just like scrolling through bullshit after one after another, and then you're like, wait, why am I looking at fucking Zoran so much in the my Australian cooker's gonna cook list? It's because of fucking Drew Pavlo all the time. Alright, the importance of the draft constitution. Well, where are we actually? I feel like we can skip a little bit of this. Federation referendums, here we go. So referendums on the proposed constitution were held in 4 of the colonies. Oh. In 1898, there were majority votes in all 4. However, the enabling legislation in New South Wales required the support of at least 80,000 voters for passage, the equivalent to about half of enrolled voters. The number was not reached. What? A meeting of the colonial premiers in early 1899 agreed to a number of amendments to make the constitution more acceptable to New South Wales. These included limiting the Braden Clause, which guaranteed the state 75% of customs revenue, to just 10 years of operation, requiring that the new federal capital would be located in New South Wales. Which guarantees the state's 75% of customs revenue to just okay, but at least 100 miles distant, at least, from Sydney. Yeah, because the idea is then, like, if the capital is way too close to any like major city of the colonies at the time, then like it would be way too much of an advantage to like buddy buddy. Because this is back in the time when you know communication wasn't so easy. And in the circumstances of a double dissolution, reducing from 6/10 to 1/2 the requisite majority to legislate of a subsequent joint meeting of Senate and House. In June 1899, the referendums on the revised constitution were held again in all the colonies except for Western Australia, where the vote was not held until the following year. The majority vote was yes in all the colonies. So it only really took till then, to like the 90s, the 1890s, for this to be a popular concept in Australia. So right, so it needed to have 80. Ah, right, because turnout didn't necessarily mean that you weren't required to vote, of course. That is so funny. That is such a small number in comparison. You can like that is just like a town sometimes now. But very few people. Well, that's an interesting thing here as well. It's not like that presumes that a lot of people just didn't care. Um, and then these referendums. Okay, we got a bit more turnout in general. Yeah. Where's Victoria? Victoria's 56. South Australia then. Okay. So then people were a little bit more interested. The bill is accepted by the colonies except West Australia, which voted after the act was passed by the British Parliament, was sent to Britain to be enacted as an act passed by the British Parliament. Because again, they were asking for permission. And it was basically saying this is what the majority of the colonies or whatever have concluded that we want this. So can you give us that? The Commonwealth of Australia Constitution, Imperial, was passed on 1900 and given royal assent by Queen Victoria. It was proclaimed Sydney. Sir Edmund Barton was sworn in as the interim Prime Minister, leading an interim federal ministry of 9 members. New constitution is established. Yep, so we got all that. Provided for the establishment of a high court and divided the powers of government between the states and the new Commonwealth government. The states retained. So, like, I'm honestly, what I'm learning here more than anything is that the idea of a united Australia was not that common of an idea back then. While yes, there was a huge surgence in nationalism, doesn't even necessarily mean it has to be racist, though probably a lot of it was, whatever. Even though there was that, there still wasn't a lot of support for the actual idea, the actual implementation of it all. Ah, okay. Australian Federation entailed the creation of both a customs and a fiscal union. With respect to the customs union, tariffs were abolished on interstate trade, although this process occurred on a phased basis in Western Australia. Man, they must have gotten like the short end of the stick quite a lot. While all of the colonies adopted the Commonwealth's Common External Tariff Schedule in October 1901. Man, back when things just happened like that, they were just snappy. The first federal Commonwealth was widely regarded as protectionist, indeed, with respect to imports from outside of Australia, imports, so importing stuff. In respect to imports from outside of Australia. The average tariff increased relative to the average of the individual colonies. The average tariff increased relative. Okay. Average tariffs prior to Federation, according to estimates produced by Melbourne economist Peter Lloyd. Nevertheless, according to him, sometimes I get my sentences a bit like the way you're supposed to like phrase it, I could be confused. Nevertheless, the welfare-enhancing effect of the elimination of tariffs on interstate trade dominated the welfare-reducing effect of higher tariffs on overseas imports, such that the net static welfare gain from Australian Federation was actually positive and estimated to have been 0.17% of GDP. With respect to the fiscal union, there was a harmonisation of excess duties at approximately the mid-level of the colonial excess duties. I don't really know what excess duties are off the top of my head. Like, all right, let me just quickly. Indirect commodity-based taxes levied on specific goods manufactured or produced within a country. Imposed on products that are. Oh, okay, like sin taxes and whatnot. The cost is generally passed on. Ah, yeah, okay. So it's like it's taxes on like the company. The company sort of really just pays it by charging the price of the product more. Gotcha. Landmarks, all right. So that's that. That's federalism. That's how federation came in Australia. That's a rather interesting one. Secessionism in Western Australia. Oh, let's say, is it anything like, oh my God, Westralian secession movement? Because I've been seeing this among like the far right in Western Australia at the moment, and they do the Westralia thing. I thought it was a new thing. Okay, they've been doing it for a while apparently. I mean, I'm on the East Coast, so like I have no idea what's going over there on the West Coast. All sorts of shit could be happening. Was grouped with Scotland, Wales, the Basque and Catalonia as places seeking maximum fiscal policy autonomy from their national capitals. Interesting. But to be fair, that's like now 13 years ago, so like that could be quite different. The pro-secessionist Wagser was formed. The party failed to gain a significant number of votes in subsequent elections, so it probably just phased out. Oh God, that's so funny. Oh, as I said, for WA, secession grew again during the COVID-19 pandemic, and WA's hard border closure with the rest of Australia in 2020. A poll run in October 2020 found that 28% of Western Australians support West Australia leaving the Australian Federation. Holy shit. There's a thing in Tasmania for. Okay, come on now. Like, if Tasmania secedes, what fucking good do you have? Like, what good are you? Like, what are you going to be able to do? Like, good luck. Before Federation, there was a lot of support for Tasmania joining the Commonwealth, though there was some opposition. The opposition argued that Federation would cause financial devastation to Tasmania, which obtained much of its revenue from customs and access. I mean, that's kind of what all of them do, though. Most, oh, I guess maybe not, because of like the bigger states. Yeah, fair enough. Okay. After Federation, like that's the thing. Like as far as these like colonies, outside of the fact that the link between them all is the British government and that they're a British crown and that they are British colonies. Like obviously some of them had by the point of federation or like shortly before they had autonomy and whatnot. They could control their own politics for the most part, but not internationally. And uh, what was I going to say? That whole thing. Oh yeah, my point was like, given the size of Australia, obviously Tasmania's kind of not on mainland Australia, but you get my point. Like they they're basically their own little countries when you really think about it. Like these little colonies, like in Africa. I don't know why I just jumped like that, but like in Africa we have so many different countries on the continent of Africa. These were bought basically, other than the fact that they were united in the one thing that was the British Empire. They were basically like their own little countries. Again, not really, but yeah. Tasmania, after Federation, Tasmania lost much of its revenue due to the free trade provisions, interesting, and was constantly dependent on grants from the Commonwealth to maintain itself, though it also gained revenue from its state lottery, which was popular in other states. Another reason why, when you really think about it, the difference between corporations and the government, sometimes there isn't that much. Like it just got privatized. I know I'm rambling. This frustration began turning into calls for independence in 1920s, which was supported by, like, mind you, I don't know we don't know necessarily what the political inclinations were of the people who were arguing for secession. This stuff tends to be like conservatives, like conservative leaning people tend to be anti federation. So it's kind of funny to think that like now we've got MFA and they're being all like, oh, day of federation, when the country became, and it's like, You know, in the 1920s, like those of you in Tasmania probably would have been in this group trying to break apart what we now know as Australia. Yeah, and then it kind of, and they kind of gave up by the 90s when everyone realized, like, yeah, this is silly now. This is just silly. Like, we're kind of stuck with each other now. That's really interesting, though. I feel like I've learned something at least out of this adventure, which was what it was all about, right? Let's see. I'm just a stupid country boy, it seems. I could not have even contemplated that evil like this existed at an unimaginable scale. From local to national government, it's rotting. You can't tell me what's this about. Oh my God. They're talking about just debt, and that's apparently the most evil thing in the world. Act like the rest of us can't get in the headspace of the scum that perpetrate industrial level theft and treason on Australia's taxpayers. Our high trust society was ruined by the worst political class in living memory. I've noticed they've been using the term high trust society a lot, as if like they've just recently learned the phrase, and they're like, "That's a cool term. I'm going to use that a lot now." And like, I just keep going back to like, dude, you're the reason. Like, your group is the reason why we're in a no trust society. And they'll say, "Well, I'm the reason why we're in a low trust society." You know, it's always the way it be. Just doing a little bit of my use to leave my home in New York City. You're Australian, dude. Move to Brisbane. Looking to correct mistakes made decades ago. Meanwhile, New Yorkers are turning New York into Tehran. They do like it is funny because you do start like I will find one of the funniest things with like racists, especially when it's like the Islamophobia stuff. It really like it's so easy to tell when they're racist. Like you can never tell them this because they will just freak out at you, but it's so obvious to tell because they'll say like this, and it's like what is it about Tehran and like Mondani that gives you the impression that that's what we're headed for. That's what they're headed for. I don't know. It's just so dumb. Being published 20 for the Great Aussie Survey. If you haven't already filled it out, here's the link. Fuck yes. Oh, you know it. You know it. What is this? The Great Aussie Survey closes 24th January 26. Results announced. Oh, you know I want to do this. Oh. Now, the individual responses will remain confidential. They are intended to better understand the views of everyday Australians on the future of our country. Your individual answers will not be passed to any third party or politician, or overall results will be published only. Let's see if we can skew this shit. Nah, I'm just curious to say. What do you believe should be Australia's top priority over the next 10 years? Reducing immigration, strengthening the economy, reducing cost of living, improving housing affordability, protecting Australian values and culture, improving education and skills, strengthening national security. Other priority, well, I'd say reducing the cost of living, you know? I mean, I think a lot of it comes upstream from that, downstream, whatever. And ironically, actually, I think reducing cost of living would downstream have a downstream effect of reducing immigration. But God, like I can't be bother trying to explain that to these people. Which immigration approach do you believe Australia should adopt going forward? Thing is, they're going to see my answers, like not knowing it's me, but like they're going to see my answers, just be like, okay, so lefty, fuck off. Net negative immigration, remigration encouraged. I don't want to actually click on that, but net zero migration equals departures. Okay. Temporary pause in immigration, maintain. Yeah, let's go with that. What balance of immigration do you think Australia, like the fact that I've done that, they're gonna just ignore it. What balance of immigration do you think Australia should have in terms of where migrants come from? Balance mixed from all regions. Yeah, of course they want it. Let's do. I want to do higher proportion for Pacific Islands. I don't even know what their like racist stereotypes are for like the Pacific Islands. It'd be interesting. How concerned are you about the impact of current immigration levels on housing affordability? Not concerned. What do you believe is the biggest pressure on Australia's infrastructure? Road, hospital. Can I do other and go, yes, yes. Um, I can't just say the bourgeoisie. What do you think is the biggest pressure on Australian infrastructure? Trucks. It applies the most weight. How satisfied are you with your current quality of life in Australia? I mean, when you really think about it, it's not that bad. Which of the following do you think is most important for preserving Australian culture and social cohesion? Shared national values, English as a unifying national language, respect for Australian laws and freedoms, which is funny because the two are kind of literally not the same as each other. Well, not really, but anyway. Integration over multicultural separation, so assimilation. Strong local communities and traditions. What do you mean by traditions? Teaching Australian history and civics. You know what? Sure, let's do that. Let's do that. I'll go with that because I'm okay with teaching Australian history and civics. All of it. Teach all of it, the good and the bad. We should know all about it. We should know our history. I don't think there's an issue with that. The bad, the good. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You'll be quite surprised what children will come to the conclusion of when they learn about these things. Should our government bureaucracies be reduced? Should our government bureaucracies be reduced? Yes, cut it by. What does that mean? What does it mean by cutting it by 30%? Such a liberal answer. Keep it the same size. We need more pure. Yes. Wait, we need due to increase. Just keep it the same. No, you know what? Cut it by 70%. Do you think Australia needs extra states? You may select multiple options. Yes. Queensland needs to split. Honestly, fucking yes. Yeah. Let Western Australia split. Honestly, same with New South Wales. I'm just down with new states, you know. Let's have some new names. Some of the names of our states are boring as fuck. I want some new names. I don't care if they're named after like a few of the original prime ministers or whatever, even if they're like super anglicized or whatever. Like, just give me some cool names. New South Wales? Really? Western Australia? No shit, it is. Queensland at least is like a little bit more unique, but it's literally Queensland. I mean, let's be honest, we know what it means. Or like what, you know. Like at least Victoria was named after the Queen, but it's like its own, like it's a name, Victoria. People are called Victoria. Women are called Victoria. Like, I don't know. How strongly do you believe Australia should protect and preserve its national identity and values? Not at all. What do you think Australia should look like in 20 years? Population size, culture, lifestyle, opportunity, community. The should is really driving a lot of this here because it's like So what I want it to be, what it should be, what would be better. Oh God. Um, let's go with, I don't know, something wild. 50-ish million. What was the other stuff? I had other options. 50-ish million people. Um, um, where we go? Heavily indigenous Australian, heavily indigenous Australian influenced Australian culture. Culture. Um, let's say stronger local communities. I feel like I need to remember what was some of the other. I have to copy. Yep, lifestyle opportunity community. I actually had like a funny idea for what like why I initially started, and then I completely fell off. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Strong, got local communities. Every worker is proudly a member of their union. That's kind of me doing a little wink at Scotty. I mean, not really, but whatever. I don't know. Fucking, that'll do it. Which political party do you most closely align with today? Oh, see now this is where the widest they've got this so that I know what this is. I know what this is. I know what this is now. Qatar's Australia Party, they're okay with. One Nation, probably don't like, but they're okay with. Renix People First, probably okay with. Libertarian okay with. Family First, I don't even remember really what the Family First like beliefs are. National's probably okay with, or like don't go hard enough. White Australia, that's there so that they know who to ignore. Again, because these people don't like the Nazis, don't like the NSN at least. Oh man, how funny would it be if I then just clicked White Australia? Now let's go Qatar. Because I'm kind of giving off Qatar vibes with what I'm saying. Ah, let's see it. Oh god damn it. Now it wants my information. Now I'm questioning whether or not I want to do this. Okay, hang on. Let me, because that'll get it off my monitor. Well, off the screened monitor. Yeah, I'm gonna. It's gonna be so dumb. 5. Yes. I just didn't want to have my public info, well, not public, but private info up there. So it's be announced on Australia Day. How funny would it be if I got to be the greatest Aussie? Or some whatever it is. Oh, got chats. All right, well, I think that'll probably be us for today. I think we covered a lot. We covered a lot of shit here actually. He's finished this take. he finished this take, lit a diary, and grinned at Jim for effect. Oh, yeah. There was something I actually. Oh, well, this is who I'm following. It's going to be a bit. There we go. That's what I actually wanted to say. Did I do this to myself again? I don't know where my tissue's gone. What have I done? How have I managed this? Oh, it's down here. Look, it's New Year's. Don't expect me to get this shit on point. You have three options: Christian nationalism, Islamic theocracy, good old-fashioned authoritarianism. Pick one. I mean, those are just the exact same things. This is what I said this to some of them before. Like I said, like, what is actually the difference between the two of these? Him being tired of being a cattle. We've launched our great Aussie survey. What's your thoughts on the direction of the country? It's just so funny. What is this? The nation never resolved to leave the empire or break all ties with Britain. Rather, the empire collapsed and Britain abandoned its responsibilities to its dominions. It's grabbed my attention. What is this? John Hurst, historian. Publishing about colonial Wales. Interestingly enough, I had a book when I was younger about like a bunch of like history, Australian history. If I remember correctly, it was like I think it was colonial history. I don't know if it was any particular state, well, colony or set of colonies, if it was just all of them, but it was like all these different stories. But it was just really, I remember because it was really cool in that like it showed like drawings and maps and pictures and whatnot of the time. So it was very like, I don't know, authentic or depicted authentic stuff. And it's just making me wonder. I wonder if the one of the books was something he had something to do with or whatever. So to become a Methodist, he was appointed a lecturer, where he remained until the end. I just want to know, like, sort of like, I guess like where his politics is, just to get a short summary. But maybe he's done a pretty decent job of like avoiding discriminate as a creative historian capable of engaging a wide as well as a public intellectually delighted and infuriated, provoked. Oh, always love that. Contributed many opinion pieces and commentaries to Australian newspapers and journals. Summer has noted that Hurst was motivated by an independent mind and a distaste for unthinking conformity. He defied simplistic categorization as a partisan because his politics were idiosyncratic. Right, as in, like, they made sense to him. Wrote Hurst was committed to the rigorous pursuit of historical truth that drove him to explore the deeper patterns and meanings of the past and the contemporary implications that others had missed or misled us about. Described himself as an old-fashioned social democrat. All right, so we're talking like kind of a more lefty-leaning guy. I know that like for communists, they're not a big fan of social democrats because it's like, oh, well, they're like, what is it, the liberal end of fascism or something like that? There's the oh, and he's a Republican in the context of Australia being a republic. This is interesting. Is he still alive? Oh, he's dead. He passed. It's 10 years ago now. Well, and a little bit more, but okay. So now it is even more interesting that he said this. And that's what um, this guy is now repeating. Or another reminder that it's just another reminder that Nazis and fascists will co-opt anything, fucking anything. All right. Oh God. One has experienced this at least once. I'm now even more confused. What did he jump at? Must be in the audio. Oh my God, they're really like obsessed with this. Ah, because it's the This Is Melbourne, right? Like they're wanting to really make a big thing about that. Have I got this guy? Stand Up Global. What? What the fuck does that mean? What the fuck? I probably should stop. Like, I feel like I've done this to death. I only cares about power. Just to go, imagine. You say this every day. Fuck. All right. I feel the end of this calling me 127. Well, you're just wrong. You're just wrong. All right. This has been fun. Oh, we hit the 3 hour point. I mean, obviously, I wasn't here like solely for 3 hours or whatever, but we'll keep it going. We'll keep it going for the future. The 2026. Here we go. All right. I'm out.